Let's cross now to Sophie Lamotte, who's at the Greens headquarters here in Paris. Sophie, who is set to become the new Popular Front's candidate for Prime Minister? And there's certainly growing talk, isn't there, of Marine Tondelier being one of the leading candidates.
Who will be the next Prime Minister? That's the million-dollar question. It's going to be really way too early to tell, unfortunately. But we did run into Marine Tondelier herself just a few minutes ago. She just went inside the headquarters and she said that she'd been working since last night. They've been working from the moment that they got the results yesterday overnight. We spoke to some other party members who said they were working until 3 to 4 a.m. They were working early this morning, making calls, speaking with different parties, speaking with different candidates, individual candidates, to see who they could potentially have built alliances with, form coalitions with. But what was quite striking in what she said is that it's not a question of who they might build alliances with, but rather what for, really focusing on their programme. We also spoke to Sandrine Rousseau just a few minutes earlier, who said the same thing. Their programme is going to be the most important thing to defend. So they'll be building alliances with that in mind, notably the idea of raising the minimum wage, fighting discrimination. They also mentioned free education, which is one of their promises, and they are really working towards making sure that will happen in Parliament over the next few months. So every party, because as a reminder, in the new Popular Front, there's 4 different parties who are working individually, have come together to build this coalition. Each of them are working individually on internal discussions, and they're going to meet later together to discuss who might be the next Prime Minister and how they might select that next Prime Minister. Some people are calling for a vote within the coalition. Others are saying that they want to see the party that got the most seats in Parliament. They want to see their leader take the seat of Prime Minister. In any case, what a lot of leaders from these parties have agreed on is that it should happen soon. Marine Tondelier herself said it would take some time, not too much, but it will take some time. And we're hoping to see that Prime Minister elected or selected by the end of the week.
Sophie Lamotte there, thank you. Now joining me in the studio is Mark Perelman, our French politics editor, who's barely had any sleep, I imagine, in the last 24 hours. Let's start with the fact that France has had no experience with coalitions since the Fourth Republic back in the 1950s, unlike Italy or Germany or Belgium. So it's politicians, and certainly as we see there, and given what's going on with the alliance and the tussling for power, they're sort of finding themselves in uncharted territory, aren't they?
Absolutely. And if you were watching another channel than France 24 yesterday night, French channels, you could see them getting at each other. And so, because that's the culture here, you have to impose yourself on your rival, impose your program, and not deal, concede, negotiate. And so, yes, this is a totally new ballgame for most politicians. And the system of the Fifth Republic was made especially to avoid what happened during the Fourth Republic, meaning unstable governments that would fall one after the other and so on. So the idea was to have stability, and that's what you've largely had for the past decades or so. Emmanuel Macron's decision to call for a snap election, which is essentially a midterm election during his mandate, is reshuffling all the cards, especially given the outcome we've had, because we have an outcome where we have 3 equivalent blocs in Parliament. Yes, the left came on top. Emmanuel Macron came second. The National Rally came on third. This was a big surprise. But as a result, the magic number is 289. That's the absolute majority in Parliament. The leftist coalition has 182. So there are 107 seats shy from an absolute majority. So this means, in effect, they don't even have a relative majority in Parliament. So it's going to be very, very difficult. And there's no way a Prime Minister can function if he doesn't have at least, as our guest was saying, the tacit acceptance of the others. Maybe not to vote in favor, but maybe to abstain. But each vote will be a struggle and a potential danger of the government falling. So there has to be not only an agreement on one person, but at least on a minimum program that this government can carry out during the legislature. But obviously, this is going to be very, very difficult.
Maybe they all need to read The Art of Compromise, Mark. But from what I understand, under the Constitution, the president is not obliged to pick a leader from the largest bloc. Is that right?
No, he's not obliged, but this has been the custom. And so it would be very strange for Emmanuel Macron to tell the leader or someone from another bloc, well, I ask you, at least as the first person to try to form a government. The logic would be that he would ask the leftist alliance, do you have a candidate? Clearly, we're seeing that they're struggling to find one or to agree on one, and then see if that person can cobble together a majority or at least a minority that can survive in parliament. But maybe through discussions, they will come up with someone else. I mean, he could come up with someone who's not a member of a political party, but a respected figure from civil society and so on, to be more creative.
But a technocratic government.
Technocratic government, that's also a possibility. That's not obviously the first choice, but that's what you could end up with, because if there is no clear majority and no clear person who can really be a consensual prime minister, well, he might have to look for someone else.